the Mediterranean Sea. For centuries, a cradle of civilization. For millions today, a passage of hope. But beneath the surface of desperate migration lies something far darker. A shadow network that this is the story the world never knew. Because if they had known, panic would have spread across 3 continents. This is the story of how an invisible force stopped the unthinkable. The year is recent. The refugee crisis continues to push hundreds of thousands across the Mediterranean, fleeing war, persecution, and collapse. Families sell everything they own for a chance at safety. Children cling to their parents as they board overcrowded boats, praying for a new beginning. But not all boats lead to freedom. Some lead to chains, deep within the intelligence networks of a classified global task force, known only as Secret Elite. A pattern emerged. It started with a single anomaly: a rescue vessel operating off the coast of Libya. On the surface, it appeared legitimate, a humanitarian organization saving lives. But the data told a different story. Refugees who boarded this vessel never arrived at official processing centers. They simply vanished. At first, it was dismissed as clerical error. Migration routes are chaotic. People scatter. Records get lost. But when the number of missing persons climbed past 200, alarm bells began to ring. These weren't scattered individuals. These were entire families. Women, children, vanishing without a trace. The task force deployed a reconnaissance team to shadow the vessel. What they discovered was beyond comprehension. The ship wasn't heading to Europe. It was heading east, toward unmarked coordinates in international waters. There, under cover of darkness, refugees were transferred to cargo ships. From there, they disappeared into a vast network spanning 5 countries. This wasn't a rescue operation. It was a pipeline. A highly organized human trafficking ring masquerading as humanitarian aid. The operation was sophisticated beyond measure. Fake NGO credentials, legitimate-looking websites, social media campaigns designed to lure desperate families, even partnerships with corrupt local officials who steered refugees towards specific departure points. The network had been operating for nearly 4 years, invisible, efficient, and ruthless. The task force knew they were facing something unprecedented. This wasn't a small-time smuggling ring. This was industrial-scale human trafficking. The scale was staggering. Over 800 people confirmed missing. But intelligence suggested the real number was far higher. Thousands of refugees, believing they were being saved, had instead been sold. The destinations were even more horrifying. Women and children were being trafficked into forced labor, domestic servitude, and exploitation across multiple continents. Families were separated deliberately. Mothers sent to one country, children to another, ensuring compliance through fear and trauma. The profit margins were obscene. Each person represented tens of thousands in revenue for the network. But the trafficking ring had made one fatal mistake. They underestimated who was watching. Secret Elite moved swiftly. A multi-phase operation was designed to dismantle the entire network without alerting its leadership. The first phase focused on intelligence gathering. Undercover operatives infiltrated refugee camps, posing as aid workers and migrants. They documented routes, identified handlers, and mapped the logistics of the operation. Within weeks, the full scope became clear. The network operated like a corporation. At the top, a command cell based in Eastern Europe coordinated everything. Below them, regional managers controlled specific routes: Libya, Turkey, Greece, Tunisia. At ground level, recruiters posed as fixers and guides, steering refugees toward the trap. The financial architecture was equally complex. Payments were laundered through shell companies registered in offshore havens. Cryptocurrency transactions obscured the money trail. Bribes flowed to border officials, port authorities, and local police. The network had spent years building relationships, buying silence, and ensuring operational security. But Secret Elite had something the traffickers didn't: unlimited resources, global reach, and the authority to operate beyond borders. The task force assembled a coalition of elite operators from 12 nations. Intelligence agencies shared data in real time. Military assets were positioned discreetly across the region. Legal frameworks were bypassed through classified executive orders. The second phase was infiltration. An undercover operative, posing as a corrupt ship captain, made contact with the network's logistics coordinator. Over 3 months, trust was built. The operative gained access to internal communications, shipping schedules, and the identities of key players. Every message was monitored, every transaction traced, every location logged. Then came the break they needed. A scheduled transfer. 140 refugees set to be moved from a vessel off the Libyan coast to a cargo ship bound for the eastern Mediterranean. The task force had 48 hours to prepare. Phase 3 was execution. The plan was surgical. Simultaneous strikes across 4 countries, timed to the minute. If any cell received warning, the entire network would dissolve. Refugees would be moved, evidence destroyed, and leaders would vanish. It had to be perfect. The night of the operation, the Mediterranean was calm. On the surface, the trafficking vessel moved slowly through international waters, its deck crowded with exhausted families. Below deck, in a locked compartment, children huddled together in darkness. They had been told they were going to safety. They had no idea they were cargo. At 0200 hours, the signal was given. From the depths, Naval Special Forces surfaced alongside the trafficking vessel. Within seconds, boarding teams secured the deck. The crew, caught completely off guard, surrendered without resistance. In the hold below, operatives found 112 refugees, terrified but alive. Simultaneously, raids erupted across the network. In Istanbul, a safe house used to hold victims before transport was breached. 18 women and children, locked in basement rooms, were freed within minutes. In Athens, a dockside warehouse where trafficking victims were processed was stormed. 47 people, scheduled for transfer that same night, were rescued. In Tunis, local enforcement, working with secret elite intelligence, raided a recruitment center posing as a travel agency. Documents seized on site revealed the identities of recruiters, transit routes, and financial backers. In Benghazi, a corrupt port official, responsible for waving through trafficking vessels, was arrested at his home. But the most critical strike happened hundreds of miles inland. In an industrial suburb of an Eastern European capital, the command cell operated from an unmarked office building. They believed they were untouchable, hidden behind layers of corporate legitimacy and political connections. They were wrong. The task force breach was silent. No alarms. No warning. Within minutes, the leadership was detained. Hard drives were seized. Bank accounts frozen. The entire financial apparatus of the network was dismantled in a single night. By dawn, the operation was complete. The trafficking network, 4 years in the making, spanning 5 countries and responsible for the disappearance of over 2,000 people, had been obliterated. In the days that followed, the scope of the victory became clear. 863 victims were recovered from various stages of the trafficking pipeline. Safe houses in 7 cities were raided. 62 operatives were arrested, including recruiters, transporters, enforcers, and the leadership cell. Financial assets totaling $43 million were seized and redirected toward victim support services. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Behind each statistic was a human life reclaimed. A mother reunited with her daughter. A family spared from separation. A child pulled back from the edge of unimaginable horror. The refugees rescued that night were given sanctuary, medical care, and legal support. They were placed in protected facilities where trauma counselors, translators, and caseworkers helped them navigate the long road to recovery. Many had believed they would never see freedom again. Now, they had a chance to rebuild. The trafficking network's collapse sent shockwaves through the underworld. Other trafficking organizations, watching from the shadows, realized that something new was hunting them. A force that operated without borders, without hesitation, and without mercy. But the public knew nothing. Governments, bound by secrecy agreements, released only vague statements about a successful counter-trafficking operation. Media coverage was minimal, a few paragraphs buried in international news sections. The full scale of what had been stopped remained classified. This is the nature of secret elite. The world sleeps soundly, unaware of the battles fought in the dark, unaware of the innocent lives saved from fates worse than death, unaware of the evil that was stopped before it could spread further. The Mediterranean still carries refugees across its waters. The crisis hasn't ended. But one monstrous network, one that preyed on the most vulnerable, will never harm another soul. Because somewhere, beyond the reach of laws and borders, an elite force watches. They do not seek recognition. They do not need thanks. They exist for one purpose: to stop the nightmares before they begin. The world never knew how close it came. How many lives hung in the balance? How easily it could have continued unchecked for years more. They didn't need to know, because it was already over. The threat eliminated. The victims freed. The evil destroyed. This is what Secret Elite does. This is why they exist. And this is why the world remains unaware of the horrors they will never have to face. The operation is closed. The files are sealed. But the mission continues. Because as long as predators hunt the innocent, there will be those who hunt the predators. Silent, relentless, unstoppable.